ask me anything about politics. My name is Jarrett, and I am here to answer your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. You are welcome here. If your question makes it clear that you are a left-wing person or a right-wing person, it does not matter. You can go ahead and ask it, and so long as you're asking in good faith and you're not trying to start a fight, then you are welcome here. Everybody is welcome here, so go ahead and throw your questions or your comments in the chat, and we will get to answering them. This is not a debate show. I know that there's a lot of very popular live stream shows and stuff like that where Democrats and Republicans yell at each other and try to prove that one of them's smarter than the other or try to win the debate. That is not what we do here. This show is about learning. This show is about not debating the issues, but discussing the issues and trying to come to a reasonable agreement about what is actually going on in the country and our government. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. You can shoot me a follow if you like as well, if you like what we're doing here. But other than that, just throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. This is a no debate zone, so you don't got to worry about getting yelled at or getting harassed or bullied, or no one's going to try to own you or try to prove that you're less smart than other people. It is just good faith answers to all of our good faith questions. Big T, welcome, Big T. Big T says, should the U.S. help Taiwan if China invaded? I do think that the U.S. should help Taiwan. Like, I think that we should help countries protect their borders. And I know that, recognizing Taiwan is like a bit of a sticky issue, but I do not believe that Taiwan wants to be invaded by China. So I think that's a fair, summary of the situation. It behooves us to not allow big, powerful countries to invade and annex smaller, less powerful countries. And so I don't think that we should escalate things to like a straight up war between America and China the same way I don't think we should escalate the Ukraine situation to a straight up war between Russia and America. But there are ways that we can support those smaller countries, and I think that we should. All right, welcome Joe Elliott says thoughts on Ed Miliband in the UK. Oh, I actually don't know who that is. Sorry about that. Führer 1939 says watching the World Cup, bro, or not? I've been able to catch a couple of games, great fan interactions on the internet. Very pleased with this World Cup. Okay, Tills, welcome Tills says, is history repeating itself? Yeah, in certain ways. There are a lot of was it Twain who said, or Hemingway who said, that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes or something. So yeah, there are echoes of the past in contemporary events. Okay, Tobias K. Brune. Welcome, Tobias K. Brune. Tobias says, hi, I'm from Norway and I don't understand why Trump wants Greenland. Friendly question. Oh yeah, that's a totally fine question, Tobias. So the exact reasons why Trump is trying to get Greenland are a little opaque and not 100% clear. There are certain people who have speculated as to what the actual motivations might be, but the reasons that Trump are giving are basically nonsense. We do not need Greenland. They're not. Greenland is not currently being surrounded by the Russia and China fleet. It really appears to be kind of just like an ego thing, where Trump wants to be the president who expanded America's territory. He wants to kind of establish a fascist-ish government here in America, and part of that is conquering extra land. And he believes that would be, he would be in the history books for adding land to America. There's also a potential second motivation where he is hostile to foreign alliances, where he does not want there to be any kind of like soft diplomacy. Like, he wants the world to operate on, a transactional basis, or might makes right. So you either pay him to get what you want, or whoever has the most bullets and bombs will win. So it is possible that his threats towards Greenland have to do with trying to break apart NATO. Okay, what is up, Ecuadorian? Thursday's going good so far. Mikhail Meme, hello, says, how does the rich billionaires and millionaires control the Republican Party? So I don't know if I would say that it's a control situation so much as an agreement, where the Republican Party's ethos is that the government should be whittled down, that it should not be involved in regulating markets, that it should not be taxing the billionaire class, and the billionaire class likes that. So they're like, okay, this is what we call a symbiotic relationship. There's no those birds that like eat flies and ticks off the backs of rhinos. Neither the bird nor the rhino control the other one. It's just a relationship that works out for both parties. All right, welcome, Larry. Larry asks, how does Trump keep his job? He falls asleep at every meeting. How can Republicans support this? So the big question, Larry, is not what the voters think, because there's a lot of reasons why voters may or may not be seeing what's going on with Trump, or why how indoctrinated they are into the MAGA cult, where they don't really care how bad of a job he's doing. The big question is, why are elected Republicans allowing this to happen? Why are the Republicans who are currently in control of the House and the Senate allowing this to happen? And I think this is a major indictment of elected Republican politicians. I believe that every American should be voting out of office every single Republican from president to dog catcher, based on the fact that they seem to not give a shit that their presidential candidate is falling asleep in meetings and mounting the most corrupt presidential administration in the history of America, among other sins. Oh, Russ A says, FDT, the only thing worse than the green slime in the pool is the orange slime in the White House. No arguments there. R Tech says, who you voting in November? Democrats up and down the ballot. Larry says he's obviously not healthy. I totally agree. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. Okay, Ecuadorian says, so as you know what happened with ICE recently, have we gotten to the point where immigrants like me should be recalled by our foreign countries for our own safety? I have no idea. Ever since Trump got elected, and he and Stephen Miller have been empowering ICE and CBP to just do whatever the fuck they want with zero consequences, hire a bunch of untrained racists to patrol the streets and harass, detain, murder whoever the fuck they want. Every single brown person in America has been in danger. Now, does that mean that you can't walk down the street? I don't know. It depends on where you live. I don't know what the ICE presence is like over there. So yeah, I can't really say what foreign governments should or should not be doing for people that are in America right now. But yeah, I think it behooves all of us to keep our head on a swivel. And anybody who speaks out about this administration is similarly, threatened. And so if you're somebody like me who goes on the internet and talks about how terrible ICE is and how terrible Trump is, like, you need to be careful as well. Welcome, Lauren Borriello. Laura says, are you a Republican? No. Welcome, Finn on Marin. Finn on Marin says, DYK, do I know anything about English politics? The only thing I know is never vote for Nigel Farage. Okay. Führer says, thoughts on Peter Thiel? Oh, a super weird dude who appears to be interested in a techno-fascist future for the globe. Do not endorse him or any candidates that he supports. All right, welcome, Matthew O'Hare. Matthew O'Hare asks, was JFK an inside job? I don't think so. Welcome, Nelly. Nelly asks, far left, far right, or far ting? Far left. Welcome, Dank. Dank says, honestly, speak on European politics right now. I don't know enough about it. I'm not really an expert in it. What is up, Willie? Great to see you again. Welcome, Willie. Okay, welcome, Boji. Boji asks, if you could delete the two-party system or the electoral college, which goes? The electoral college. If you get rid of the electoral college, it becomes more likely that third parties could emerge for, for presidential elections. Dank says, that's not a very good answer. Neither do I, but we both know European politics carry over to America. Well, do you have a specific question that you want to ask me about European politics? And I'll see if I can answer it, since you seem to have a problem with me admitting that I'm not an expert in European politics. Welcome, Doha Vintage Watches says, where are you from? I'm from America, born and raised. James044, welcome. James says, I'm just guessing if Nigel is Prime Minister of the UK, it's checkmate. No, the game is never over. It is just, is it going to be harder going forward, or is it going to be less hard going forward? Welcome, Joe Padilla. Great to see you again. Says, have you ever watched The West Wing? Oh yeah, I love The West Wing. Fintan says, thoughts on Count Binface? I'd rather vote for him than Nigel Farage. Dank says, Muslim uprising. So there's no Muslim uprising happening. What you are looking at is an immigration crisis caused by Western countries ruining the Middle East. And so those are people who are fleeing violence. They are fleeing famine. They are fleeing droughts. So it is not we are trying to turn your country into our country. It is we are trying to find a safe place for our families to live and for our children to be raised. And if you keep on saying that this is a Muslim invasion, Dank, I'm going to boot you because I don't care for people who just spread anti-immigrant hate completely devoid of any facts on my live stream. What is up, Ari's Gods? Welcome to the live stream. John Abbott answered that question for me. Thank you very much. John Abbott is clarifying the Greenland question. As climate change melts more and more, the polar ice caps, northern waterways become more viable as international trade routes. Controlling those routes is economically valuable, but acknowledging that's the reason they want Greenland would require them to acknowledge that climate change is real. Yeah, you know, it's an interesting point, John. I think it is probably part of Trump's calculus, but honestly, it seems a little too smart for him. I think it's possible that somebody put this idea in his head and told him that he would be a great, he would go down in the history books as being the greatest president because he got Greenland for America. And that's, potentially somebody told him that it would make him a lot of money, but I don't think he is connecting two and two. Ari's God says, are you live on YouTube too? Yeah, I am multicasting. I am streaming on Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. Okay, Joey, welcome, Joey. Says, thoughts about Tim Walz lying about being in the military. I don't think that he did that, Joey. Doha says, can you go outside without seeing someone who did not murder in Iraq, Afghanistan, or on Yemen or much? I'm not really sure what you're asking me, Doha Vintage Watches, and stop spamming the comments. Okay, let's see here. Scrolling up. Dank says, why can't we have a conversation? And I also just brought up Ireland before. I'm not bringing up hate. Well, Dank, there are certain people who try to use the veneer of having a nice conversation in order to push their political agenda. And if it becomes clear that somebody has a political agenda, that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not trying to elevate somebody's political agenda. I'm trying to expand an understanding of politics and what's going on in the country and the government and potentially, depending on what the question is, around the world. So yeah, if it becomes clear to me that you are somebody who is just trying to gin up anti-immigrant hate on my live stream, then I'm going to boot you. But if you're open to the idea that you're wrong about this, then you can definitely stay. Boji, welcome, Boji. Boji asks, why does Congress force the Pentagon to buy more Abrams tanks when the Army says it doesn't want it? My guess, Boji, I'm not familiar with that specific issue, but my guess is that those tanks are made in a state where they want those jobs to continue. Like, they want to be able to say to their constituents, like, I protected the Abrams tanks factory that all of you guys are being employed by, stuff like that. Okay, Aries God says, what do you think who is going to be the next face of the Democrats? It's probably going to be some progressive politician. I think that America is kind of over the establishment Democrats, even if you're in like a more purple or centrist district. I think that people are excited about the younger, more progressive candidates that are coming on the scene. But that really just depends on who the primary voters pick. The DNC does not pick who the candidate is going to be. Okay, let's see here. Joey Carrasco, welcome. Joey Carrasco says, what's your thoughts on the rise of democratic socialism? I'm for it. Dank says, one of these days you will Google Belfast, Ireland. You see, that's exactly the kind of comment that I think makes me want to boot you. Dank, did you say anything interesting or valuable? Says, no, I'm used to getting kicked by people who won't have a conversation because I vote Trump. You vote Trump and you're talking about the... Yeah, you're out of here, man. You're not here in good faith. KD says, will Save America Act pass? Very unlikely, KD. It's very unlikely that the Save America Act will pass. That being said, you can never really, plan on the Republican Party doing the right thing. You will never lose money if you always bet on the Republican Party doing the wrong thing. So I would just, continue putting political pressure on your elected representatives to make sure that they do not pass the Save America Act. All right. Welcome, Cooper Erickson says, what are your thoughts on Irish independence? If the Irish want to be independent, they should be able to be. Timothy, welcome, Timothy. Timothy asks, ladyboys or femboys? Whatever you're into. I don't care. Welcome, Malik McIntyre 8. Malik asks, did you hear about the American strikes against Iran just 3 hours after the NATO summit in Turkey? Yeah, it seems like Trump is re-escalating with Iran, wasting more taxpayer dollars, wasting more human lives. The cost of gasoline and other goods will continue to skyrocket. Inflation will not be solved. Cost of living crisis will not be solved. Everybody's lives are going to get harder and more expensive for no fucking reason. We are not going to stop their nuclear program. We are not going to do regime change. We are just an armed division of the Netanyahu government right now for some fucking reason. So everybody, I told you not to vote for Trump, and y'all did anyways. Joe Padilla and Muzz King, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Willie says that Graham Plattner was disappointing. Yeah, that is 100% accurate. But there are other Graham Plattners out there who have not done sexual assaults. Welcome, Papa 17 18 19 says, am we gonna vote for him in 2028? Question mark. No, nobody is gonna vote for Trump in 2028. Okay, welcome, Clean Fresh Edits. Clean Fresh Edits asks, do you pay for any news monthly subscriptions? I don't. I have a free subscription to The Atlantic that they gave me because I'm a content creator. Okay, let's see here. Mikhail asks, what is the CBP? That is Customs and Border Patrol. CBP. John Abbott says, what book are you currently reading? Or if being a new dad is keeping you from having the time, what did you read most recently? I've been on a real reading kick. I've been reading to my daughter, even though she's way too young to understand it. Right now I just read a book called Stoner, which is not about what it sounds like it's about. That's the dude's last name. There's no recreational activities in that book at all. And that book was awesome. I love that book. Right now I'm reading New York 2140, I think it's called, by Kim Stanley something. And I'm also listening to Ben Rhodes's book about American speeches called All We Say, and I am very much enjoying that. Adam says, tell us why Israel shouldn't exist. I don't think that Israel shouldn't exist. I think it's fine if Israel exists. Adam says, you're not a content creator. You're paid to spread liberal brainwashing BS. So that is not accurate at all. And that seems kind of hostile. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of you. Joey asks thoughts on James Fishback. I don't know who that is. Let's see here. Boji asks, did the neocon wing of the Republican Party officially die? So I don't know if they've officially died. I think they're kind of like cicadas, like a bunch of racist Reagan trickle-down economics cicadas that are just waiting for MAGA to be over so they can kind of like take over. What I'm imagining they're going to try to do is prop up the corpse of MAGA to try to maintain some kind of political dominance after Trump is gone, and then just kind of like sneak in their neoconservative policy preferences. So, tax cuts for the wealthy, warmongering in the Middle East, stealing oil, ruining green energy, stuff like that. Willie asks, Ron Paul or John McCain? Oh, John McCain every fucking day of the week, man. Yeah, I can't fucks with libertarians, man. Max, welcome, Max0166 says, what's the origin of your last name? My wife said it means like precious brown stones or something like that, or amber stones. Okay, scrolling. Average Joe, welcome, Average Joe. Hold on a second. Ari's God says, do you think, can they have a comeback? Oh, definitely. The Democratic Party can mount a comeback. But Unfortunately, it's going to be harder than it should. Like, America is currently just being drenched in propaganda and misinformation. And that propaganda and misinformation has exactly one cause, and it is to elect Republicans by either convincing people to vote for Republicans or to just not vote at all. And so once you start recognizing like what these narratives are, everybody who's out there saying both parties are the same, anybody who's out there saying nothing ever changes, anybody out there saying that the Democrats are worse than the Republicans, like all of this is part of the same nonsense vat of propaganda. So it is true that Democrats can and should be dominating electorally, but because of a bunch of chicanery and monkey shines, it is not clear whether or not they 100% will. Okay, Sandy says, what are you saying? I'm answering questions about politics. Joey says, if sanctuary city policies work, why have some cities recently asked for limits on new arrivals? So I don't know if that's true, Joey. You ask a lot of questions of things that I think might actually just be right-wing propaganda. So yeah, I doubt the validity of that statement. Odin's son, welcome. Great to see you again. Welcome, Odin's son 2050. Odin's son asks, are you familiar with the second fallacy of economics? If so, thoughts on its conclusions? No, I've never even heard that phrase before. Mikhail Meme asks, do you like dogs? Oh, yeah, I love dogs. Average Joe asks, would you agree that while it may be reasonable to recognize an immigration issue, it's the propaganda that convinces people to focus on the immigrant instead of the underlying cause? Oh, yes, Average Joe. I could not have said that better myself. And yeah, I'll say every day on this live stream that, of course, there are logistical issues with mass migration, but because immigrants are a net positive, anybody who's trying to tell you that those problems are not eventually going to be solved or that other problems are being caused by immigrants are lying to you. All right, welcome, Rachel. Rachel says, please tell me how Democratic Socialists failed in KS buses. I don't know what KS buses is, but I am confident in a lot of Democratic Socialist policies, so I am skeptical that there is like some great failure of democratic socialism in Kansas or whatever KS stands for. Okay, freakiest deakiest. Welcome, freakiest deakeists. Thoughts on ANCOM excluding white nationalist LARPers? I think, is that anarcho communism? I don't know what ANCOM is. Boji says, does quitting 66 international groups just hand power to China? Yes, 100%. Part of the way that America has been dominant for so long is being at the forefront of all of these international groups. You know, like people in the UN looked to America, people in NATO look to America. And so if we just leave, we are leaving a sort of like supreme leadership position on the table, and it is a position that China desperately wants. Mikhail Meme says, is the city you live in multicultural? Yes, I've spent most of my life in multicultural cities. Average Joe says a sanctuary city does not actively protect immigrants. It only means that their local law enforcement won't help federal immigration officers. Oh, I missed Average Joe's question. Did I? I don't think I did, Average Joe. Hold on a second. Average Joe is here. Since Maine voters overlooked many red flags when choosing Plattner, would you agree if the Maine Democratic Party chooses a corporate stooge that would show they're willing to lose? Would you agree? Would you agree that if the Maine Democratic Party chooses a corporate stooge that would show that they're willing to lose? No, I do not agree with that. If that happens, which I don't think it's going to happen, all three candidates that I have heard are potentially going to pick up the mantle are progressives. So, yeah, I'm also not going to decide on a narrative before a thing actually happens. Rachel says, Kansas buses no longer free. My MAGA brother keeps telling me it's a failed formula. So Kansas buses used to be free, but then a Democratic Socialist was elected, and then those buses are no longer free. I find this whole narrative to be sus. I think your brother is not saying things that are accurate. KD asks, why isn't Medicaid fraud getting more coverage? So the coverage that Medicaid fraud, the coverage of the Medicaid fraud that was happening was for a very specific purpose. It was to try to discredit and smear the Democrats that are operating in Minnesota. So like Tim Walz, what's that? One of the squad members whose name I can't remember. Somali immigrants, stuff like that. But it's happening. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in red states. It's happening in blue states. And so now, but because it's not valuable for the Republican Party to go into detail about that fraud happening in every state, they've already kind of like got what they want out of it. They have smeared Tim Walz. They have smeared the person whose name I can't remember, and Somali immigrants in Minnesota. So yeah, I just don't think it's valuable for them anymore. Okay, Rachel said he said it was Democratic Socialist is why it failed. He said Mamani will do the same, huh? Yeah, I just, I think that is a fraudulent argument that your brother is making, Rachel. I think that if Kansas had free buses and they can't anymore, my guess is because Kansas is being run by Republicans who refuse to tax the wealthy to pay for the free public buses. That's my guess. I don't know what's going on with the state government of Kansas. I didn't even know that they had free buses and that the free buses left. But if they didn't have Democratic Socialists in charge of the free buses, then I don't understand how he can blame the Democratic Socialists for the buses no longer being free. All right, welcome, Secret ACC. Secret ACC asks, do you like what Trump does? No, I do not. Freakiest Dekius says, yes, anarcho-communism. That doesn't sound like a political philosophy that I would get behind. Iker, welcome, Iker. Iker asks, what's your party? Progressive Democrats. Odinson asks, what is the line at which the U.S. should intervene with foreign conflicts, i.e. Nigeria? So I don't think it's necessarily one specific metric. I think a lot of things have to kind of like line up. I think we need to look at ways that we can help civilian populations without being disruptive. Some of that can be economic sanctions on bad leaders that they have. Some of it can be humanitarian aid. Like, all right, you're not gonna feed your people. Will you allow us to come in and feed your people? Organizations like USAID were like an excellent example of that. But yeah, should a nation do something that is so unbelievably damaging both to their own civilian population and to neighboring countries, then I think that America's involvement can be a little bit more aggressive, and potentially, I don't love the idea of a ground invasion, but I could imagine a scenario in which it would be necessary, like World War II. Okay, welcome, Ever. Ever asks, is it just me or is commercial agriculture way worse than data centers? I don't know if it's way worse, but it's definitely an issue, and I think that we should be working towards breaking apart commercial non-organic agriculture so that we can have food that is both healthier for us and for the planet. Boji asks, would you trust a neutral AI over a human judge if it guaranteed zero bias? I mean, if we're talking about a sci-fi scenario where we know 100% that a neutral AI has zero bias, then sure. But I don't think that we live in a world where we can have that kind of confidence. Ever says, trillions more gallons wasted than ever used, even on data centers. Are you talking about over the lifetime of commercial agriculture, or are you talking about over the same period of time ever? Also, I think it's important to recognize that at the end of that water being spent, then we have food. Whereas the end of the water being spent for the data centers is we build more data centers and then waste even more water, and more people lose their jobs, and nothing good has been built or grown. General Warts, welcome, General Warts, says, I do not welcome Warts generally, but still. General Warts asks, why has MAGA and liberal sides both gone insane? I do not believe that people on the left have gone insane, General Warts. Odinson says, AI has human influence and will always have bias to some degree. I completely agree with that. Ever says, you're comparing use to use. I'm comparing waste to use. I mean, I think you should compare the entire equation. Like, what are we getting out of the water that we are using? What are, the same way that it's not, you know, universal health care would mean raising taxes, but it would also mean getting rid of the money that we have to spend on private insurance, which would be less than the money that we're spending on private insurance, which means that we would end up saving money. So you see how if you just look at one side of an issue, you can kind of paint it to be better or worse. Like, it almost seems like what you're saying here is that we shouldn't be upset about data centers using water because farmers use more water than data centers. It's like, yeah, well, farmers make our food. Data centers only make AI, which is not providing anything. KD says, can you define a woman? I mean, I suppose I'm not really a biologist, but if you talk to biologists, they will tell you that it's more complicated than just who has a vagina and who don't. Ever says, just changing to more efficient irrigation would save 10x what we use on data centers. I mean, I'm down for that, Ever. I am 100% down for that. But the thing is, we need farms because we need food. We do not need data centers. Eleanor Wilkins says, should Count Binface run the world? No, it should not. All right, let's see here. Did I not answer that question already, Average Joe? I'm pretty sure I did. Let me know. Okay. Welcome, Malik McIntyre 8. Malik McIntyre says the U.S. military is not behind the current attack in Iran. I don't know if that's true, Malik. I would need to dip into that a little bit. Ever asks, how would you falsify we do not need data centers? Are you asking me how I would argue about my own point that we don't need data centers? That's not my job, my guy. I mean, you can argue for a value for data centers, but it is not worth the cost. I don't think so. Somebody who doesn't have a name but just has a triangle emoji asks, socialism? ? I mean, I like socialized medicine. That sounds like a pretty good thing. I like free public college. I like universal basic income. All that sounds pretty good to me. Odinson asks, I don't believe I've ever heard your abortion take. Mind discussing, please? Oh, yeah, this is one of my favorite issues. I've got this speech fucking, fucking nailed, man. So I am personally pro-choice. I do not believe that a fetus is a person. But if you are pro-life, if you are somebody who is anti-abortion and believes that a fetus is a life and that every abortion is murder, then you should still vote for the Democratic Party, because Democratic policies actually decrease abortions because they go towards the root cause of abortions, meaning sex education, meaning family planning, meaning healthcare, meaning getting people out of poverty. Those are all the main reasons. It's when people get accidentally pregnant because they don't have access to information, because they don't have access to contraception, or because they can't afford to have a child that they just got pregnant with. Now, the Republican policies are antithetical to all of that. They are antithetical to sex education. They just believe in abstinence-only education. They're antithetical to making contraception available and affordable. They are against things like raising the minimum wage and unions and family planning. All things that would make it that would bring people out of poverty and make it easier for them to actually afford having a kid. So it seems like they want people to become accidentally pregnant. It seems like they want people to have kids that they can't afford. Now, why would they want that? It seems like what they want is people to be so desperate to survive because now they're being forced to raise a child that they can't afford, or they didn't even know how they fucking got pregnant, that they will then be forced to do any job or jobs that they can fucking get, even if they're dangerous or demeaning, and they won't have time to strike or boycott or protest or vote or learn shit, Additionally, so what is the Republican plan for ending abortion if they're not actually going after the root causes of abortion? Well, what they do is abortion bans. And abortion bans don't actually decrease abortions. What they do is just make pregnancy more dangerous for women, not just women who want to have abortions, but women who want to have children. There are women who are dead today who were pregnant because they wanted to have a child, and they had pregnancy complications, but because of abortion bans in their Republican-controlled states, those women are now dead. Some of them are alive still, but they have lost their ability to reproduce. And even those ones that survived with their fertility intact were tortured. They were told, I cannot legally help you until your situation gets worse. So go be in pain in the parking lot, go bleed out, and hopefully when things get dire enough, I will legally be able to give you the medical care that you desperately need. So if it's not helping the situation and it is causing more women to die, why are we doing this? Alrighty. What's the most recent question? So yeah, I answered the. Tell me which question I haven't answered, Average Joe. Is it the main one that I haven't answered, or is it the? I said, would you agree that while it may be reasonable to recognize the yeah, I answered both of these. Which one did you not hear? Immigration or Maine? Let me know. Okay, let's see here. Sully, welcome, Sully. Sully asks, what is the reason to divide people left versus right, men versus women, people of color versus whites? So that is a really good question, Sully. And there's two things that I want to say about it. Number one, that this is a tool that the Republican Party and the billionaire class are using to get us to fight amongst ourselves. They love it when people are racist because they spend so much time being angry at people of color that they don't recognize that the billionaire class is fucking them over. They want the voters, left-wing voters and right-wing voters, fighting amongst themselves, or center-left voters fighting against progressive voters, et cetera, so that they don't recognize that the billionaire class are fucking them over. Now, that doesn't mean that both parties are the same. It's still valuable to try to convince people to be voters for the Democratic Party and voters against the Republican Party. It's not that the parties are part of that, but the narratives surrounding these divisions, convincing you that other voters are your enemy, that is the issue. But we should still vote for Democrats. Okay, welcome. Eleanor Wilkins says, is that actually what happens in the U.S. about abortion? Yes, 100% that is what happens about abortion in America, unfortunately. Ever says, closing data centers means shifting compute to more wasteful edge computing. It does sound like you are here specifically to spread data center misinformation. Ever. The thing is, data centers don't need to be wasting a ton of water. They're doing it because it's cheaper than switching over to more efficient cooling mechanisms. Ever. So I am not going to entertain you trying to cloud the issue around data centers. Eleanor says, fuck me, that's messed up. That's what I'm doing here, Eleanor. I'm trying to change it. I'm trying to convince people to vote. I'm trying to convince people to vote for a bunch of different reasons. If you're not going to vote because you like the Democratic platform, can you at least vote because you recognize that the Republican Party is trying to fucking kill us? Unless you're a billionaire or a millionaire, then you're probably fine. You know, then I get it. Then I get you voting for Republicans. Joe Padilla, Muzz King, Triska, and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Freakiest Deakiest asks, are you streaming on another platform? Yes, I simulcast on 3 streaming platforms at once. TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. Okay, Ever, you are in question jail. You either ask a question or you leave. I am done. You're sus as hell. I know what you're doing. You have been unmasked. You know, you are a data center apologist. You are trying to confuse people. So yeah, you either ask a question or you leave. Odinson asks, what would your response be regarding abortion to someone who says, close your legs? So I understand the argument, the responsibility argument of close your legs, but it doesn't really address the central issue. The central issue is, should we be voting for pro-choice politicians or anti-abortion politicians? Which policy actually decreases abortions and which policies actually save women's lives? Additionally, the close your legs argument doesn't work if the person was sexually assaulted. you can't really say to somebody who was sexually assaulted, well, you should have closed your legs. Additionally, some people get pregnant without actually knowing how you get pregnant. So maybe the person who doesn't know that you get pregnant from having sex, or even what sex is doesn't understand what close your legs even means. Again, sex education is important. All right. Fair Point says, you agree with me that data centers policies needs real regulation now? Yes, 100% ever. Yes, let us make that happen. I am done with data centers taking up all of our potable water. I am done with data centers soaking up all of our electricity, and then us, the taxpayers, subsidizing it, and us having to pay more for our electricity because they're fucking sucking up so much of it. And for why, you know? Okay, Mikhail says, who is this Abdul Sayed guy in Michigan? Oh, he's a doctor. He's an epidemiologist. He's an awesome progressive champion, and everybody should vote for him. He is dope as hell. Okay, Yankee Balik Bayan says, also pro women's healthcare. I'm also pro women's healthcare, yes. Yankee asks, who should pay for the new power plants and transmission lines that AI data centers require? Anybody who has $1 billion should pay for it. Boji asks, if algorithmic code already runs our global banks and infrastructure, why draw the line at our laws? I believe that every area of of human life still involves human decision making and human oversight. So it is true that we employ algorithms in our global banks and infrastructure, but what we are not doing is saying, build us a bridge, AI, and then we will just trust that that bridge is safe to drive on. Okay, RM18CPR says, to add on to that, why don't pro-lifers ever tell men, keep it in your pants? Excellent, excellent addition, RM18. Thank you for that. Okay, John Abbott asks, do you think the governor of Kentucky should just declare that all evidence indicates McConnell is no longer with us and initiate the process to replace him to force the GOP to either provide actual proof that he's alive and capable or allow his seat to be filled? I don't know if the governor of Kentucky has that kind of power. I think that we actually do need some regulations concerning proof of life around and proof of mental fitness and physical fitness to be to actually do their fucking jobs into our government oversight legislation. I think that really needs to be a fucking thing, you know. But yeah, I think that if Bashir can do that, I don't understand. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. All right, Average Joe. I'm all caught up, Average Joe. If the main Democratic Party chooses a corporate solution instead of a candidate with progressive values, how would you interpret that other than FU voters? You could interpret it as them thinking that that person is more viable of a candidate because Susan Collins is so popular, and the thing that's popular about her is that she appears to be more of a centrist Republican as opposed to a MAGA Republican. So maybe they think that the voters in Maine want a more centrist Democrat as opposed to a far left Democrat. I don't personally agree with that. I'm saying that there's other reasons. Those reasons can be wrong, but they can exist, Average Joe. Okay, let's see here. Jeremy Wolf. Welcome, Jeremy Wolf 62. Why should I pick left or right when they're both hypocritical and corrupt? Really good question, Jeremy Wolf. Are you still here, Jeremy Wolf? Are you interested in the answer, or are you just a person who is spreading both sides misinformation? Boji asks, if human oversight is so perfect, why is our actual physical infrastructure currently a big mess? Oh, it's not perfect, Boji, but just the same way that human oversight isn't perfect, human-created algorithms and human-created AI is also not perfect. So again, we just have to constantly be striving for better. And at the very least, we got to make sure that whatever happened, whatever decision's getting made, we can at least point to a human for accountability. I just got flagged for misinformation. That fucking sucks. Well, what are you gonna do? Would anybody like to tell me what misinformation I'd said that you object to? Would whoever reported me care to reveal yourself so that we can address the thing that I said that you think was inaccurate or misinformation? Yeah, it's such a weenie fucking move to report my channel and then dip because you just don't like the things that I'm saying because you don't want people to vote for progressives, you know? Yeah, it's annoying, but what are you gonna do, guys? Support the channel as a way of saying fuck you to those weenies. Support the channel. Do everything you can to make my channel more popular as a fuck you to the people who are trying to silence progressive voices on the internet. Oh, Jeremy Wolf, you're still here. Fantastic. All right, Jeremy Wolf. Yes, I will answer your question. So the reason why you would want to vote for Democrats over Republicans is because they're better. And it is inaccurate to say that they are equally hypocritical or corrupt, or I forget exactly the words that you said earlier, but you were like, they're hypocritical and something. But it is inaccurate to say that they are, hold on a second, Valva Mian. I got to go ahead and block you for spamming. So yeah, if you would like me to explain how the Democratic Party is better than the Republican Party, I'm happy to do that. It is definitely inaccurate to say that they are equally bad. They're not equally corrupt. They're not equally hypocritical. They're not equally liars. They do not cause equal pain. They are not equally, what do you call it, enabling genocides. You know, they're not equally warmongers. They are not equally in the pocket of the billionaire class. The Democratic Party is better. Triska, Muzzking, and Eleanor, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. All right, now we're moving on to Finger Hearts. It is Finger Hearts o'clock, everybody. Best part of the day. All right, Malik says, what's your thoughts on the left and right in America using the Kurds as pawns and militants? So I'm definitely not an expert in this specific issue that you are talking about. You know, there are ways in which America helps insurgent armies and resistant movements and sovereign nations to protect themselves. I think that's different than being a pawn. You know, like if you watch the movie Charlie Wilson's War, when we armed Al Qaeda, was it? I forget. I think it was Al Qaeda. We armed them so that the people in Afghanistan could protect themselves against the Russians. Like, you know, that was them fighting the Cold War for us, but it was also good because, you know, children weren't getting their hands blown off picking up landmines that the Russians had put in their country. Okay, me in it says, any chance to answer my question? I would need to find your question. Me in it. Where's your question? One state or two state solution, perspective on Israel being apartheid state. I think it is clear. I think the evidence is clear that Israel is an apartheid state, that they have turned Palestine into an open air prison. Independent organizations, even those located within Israel, have concluded that what the Netanyahu government is doing is a genocide. Other organizations have said that Netanyahu is a war criminal. So yeah, what do we do about this going forward? Many people have suggested, experts in this are suggesting that a two-state solution is no longer viable because Israeli settlers have annexed so much territory in the West Bank, it's impossible. You know, I'm sure there is some sort of diplomatic solution. I think that we need to take this one step at a time. I think first step has to be putting pressure on Israel to stop doing war crimes and genocide. We have to make it clear that America is not going to be complicit in this any longer. And that means no more weapons and no more money, no more financial assistance, no more even buying weapons from America. After that, you know, things are a little muddier. We got to kind of wait and see what happens after that. But yeah, I think it's Israel's responsibility, if I'm being perfectly frank. They're the more powerful nation in that region. So it should be their responsibility to bring peace. And if, you know, Hamas throws a rocket into your country, you do not then respond by murdering 100,000 civilians. That's an escalatory move, not a de-escalatory move. Okay, Average Joe says, you don't feel that after years of this viability argument giving us Trump twice and Republican control of Congress, that it's actually centrist propaganda to capitulate the anti-war, anti-corporate lefties. Average Joe, I do think that what you are talking about, I think it exists. I 100% agree that the thing that you are saying exists. I don't agree that the viability argument is what gave us Trump twice. If you remember, it was the primary voters that chose both Clinton and Biden actually won. So the centrist candidate did deliver us from Trump. One of those 3 times that he ran. Almost seems like you are, constructing your sentences in order to make it seem like it is this one specific thing that is happening as opposed to more complicated. Yeah, let's see here. For a long time, centrist candidates have had just as mixed of a record of getting elected as progressive candidates have. We are potentially looking at that dynamic being switched. So again, that argument is not going to work anymore. But yeah, I think that you need to recognize that there are good faith reasons for this, and we've had this argument 1,000 times, man. I don't understand why. Even if you don't buy what I'm selling, you have to at least know what I'm saying, right? You have to at least understand my argument at this point, right? Okay, Boji says, if imperfection is the bar, why are we trusting the most flawed data source, human politicians? Boji, it seems like the argument that you're making here is that AI has the potential to be more perfect than humans, because look at how many times humans have fucked up in the past. But you're forgetting that AI was created by humans and is ergo similarly riddled with human frailty and flaws. So, and worse than that, agendas. So make it make sense, I don't think, Boji, I don't think you win this argument by constantly pointing out how flawed human beings are. I think you make this argument by convincing people that AI has transcended human frailty, which I don't think that it has. Okay, Sully says, isn't AI created itself? No, it is not. And if you look at the ways in which Elon Musk has kind of like fiddled with his AI, you can see how humans being in control of these machines actually is dangerous for us to put all of our faith in them. Okay, Odinson says, thoughts on Hamas conceding political control? Odinson, I need to read more about that. I only read that it had happened. I did not read into what the government of Gaza or Greater Palestine is going to look like. Is the Palestinian Authority taking over? For Hamas, what is Hamas going to be doing? I need to look more into that. And if you send me a DM, it will remind me to look into that if you want to talk about it on a different stream. All right, Average Joe says, while Clinton did win the primary, which candidate won the first few states of the 2016 Democratic primary? Then which candidates drop out after the first few primaries? You're talking about 2016. 2016, the fact that led to her victory. Have you ever known me to maliciously ignore content? No, I haven't, Average Joe. I got nothing but love and respect for you. So you're talking about the candidates that dropped out in 2016. They were not siphoning votes away from Hillary Clinton. That was not like a coordinated DNC move. And yeah, it is true that the DNC put their finger on the scale for Hillary Clinton, but I don't believe that they contributed to her victory. I think that she won by such a large margin, Pee Wee Herman. I think that she won by such a large margin that what the DNC did really didn't make any difference. Let's see here. Okay, Oceanaholic. Welcome, Oceanaholic. 53 says, I don't remember if I've asked you this. Are housing prices crashing? I have not seen any data on that. I've seen some mixed stories about housing prices are going to come down based on potentially mortgage rates going down in the maybe future. But I haven't seen any actual data on it actually going down. The only information I have seen is the prices of everything is going up. All right, Average Joe says, wait, and I'm waiting, my guy, and I am waiting. Okay, let's see here. Muzz King, tell him Large Marge is a. You just said it wasn't a coordinated DNC move, and then the next thing you mentioned that they had their thumb on the scale. No, I was saying specifically about the candidates that dropped out of the race, whose names I couldn't even begin to fucking tell you right now. I think there were two other people running in 2016, two or three other people running in 2016 besides Clinton and Sanders, and they were not siphoning votes, So, yeah, the way that the DNC put their finger on the scale was in things like super delegates. There was some evidence to suggest that Hillary Clinton was given debate questions early. I don't remember if that's a real thing or not. But it is true that the DNC had their preference for Hillary Clinton being the nominee, and they made that known, and they used whatever power they had. But the DNC is not an all-powerful organization. They do not control who the voters vote for. If they were, then Barack Obama would not have won in 2008. So yeah, does that clear it up, Average Joe? Let me know how you feel about that. All right, welcome Dalsy65. Dalsy65 asks, was Jeffrey Epstein part of Mossad? And is he still alive? I don't think he's still alive, though it is possible. And I don't think that he was a member of Mossad, though it is possible. I think the most likely scenario where Jeffrey Epstein is concerned is that he made a lot of money and he had a lot of power, and he used that money and power to have sex with underage children and also have other powerful rich people have sex with underage children, and then use that as blackmail. And then intelligence agencies like Mossad, like KGB, like potentially MI6, potentially the CIA, used the blackmail material that Jeffrey Epstein had for their own ends, and thereby Jeffrey Epstein also was owed a lot of favors by very powerful organizations. I think that's probably the most likely scenario. Okay, Nick, welcome, Nick. Nick asks, who has more power, Warren Buffett or the presidents? Probably the presidents. I think that Warren Buffett would very much like it for Trump to not be president. I think Warren Buffett would not be supporting detention facilities, ICE murdering people. And so if Warren Buffett had the power to stop that, I think he would. All right, welcome Clean Fresh Edits. Clean Fresh Edits asks, would you rather spend money trying to get DSA to win Democratic primary or flipping purple districts blue? Ooh, that's a really good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. Because it's butting heads, Clean Fresh, against two specific motivations that I have, where I personally believe that DSA-style candidates, progressive candidates, Democratic Socialist candidates are better in the general election, because what America wants are things like cutting off aid to Israel, universal health care, taxing the wealthy, progressive economic and progressive health care, and anti-war policies. And that is a cornerstone of progressive politics. But I do kind of think that the emergency is in getting rid of Republican candidates. Not getting rid of them but I mean like unelecting Republican politicians. Making the Republican platform so toxic that no possible majority can be mounted anytime in the future. And so I kind of feel like if I gave my money to elect more DSA-style candidates, it would end up flipping more purple districts to blue. But if it's an either or situation, I think the priority is unelecting Republicans. Alrighty. Nick says Trump can't stop him either, though. Trump can't stop Warren Buffett. I mean, he could. Trump can do a lot more to ruin Warren Buffett's life than Warren Buffett can do to ruin Trump's life. Okay, let's see here. Tony Stokes says, why is Japan an Iranian republic? Because the president is not a very smart person. All right, Living Bot. Welcome, the Living Bots. The Living Bot asks, I don't know if this quite applies, but why is communism not as demonized as fascism? I guess because there's never really been a communist country or a communist threat, but there have been real fascist threats in fascist countries. All right, Clean Fresh Edit says, I meant, would you rather spend money on Deep Blue purple district primaries or purple district generals. Yeah, I would much rather spend money on purple district generals. Clean, fresh edits. Yes, 100%. It is way more important to me to flip seats from red to blue than it is to get more progressive candidates into safe Democratic seats. I think those are both excellent things to do. But again, I think the emergency is unelecting Republicans as opposed to replacing centrists with progressives. Because flipping Republican seats to Democratic seats help the progressives that are already elected. All right, Silly Billy. Welcome, Silly Billy. Silly Billy asks, do you know how to remove a medium-sized hot dog out of a tennis? That is not a question about politics. But it also wasn't a question about body pillows. So, anime body pillows. So, I'm still doing okay in my battle against that dude. All right, Boji still trying to convince me that we should give all of our decision making over to AI. Boji says, every tool we invent is designed to transcend our limits. Why is intelligence any different? Because intelligence is different than consciousness, and both consciousness and intelligence are very difficult to define and measure and control. Malik says, what's your thoughts about the Saudis capitulating the South Transitional Council in Yemen? As the first time hearing about it, Malik. Sorry about that. Slug832. Welcome, Slug832. Slug asks, are Second Amendment demonstrations against ICE legal? I believe that they are. I think they can be done in an illegal way. I don't believe that just bringing a gun to a protest is illegal, depending on what state you're in, and depending on if you have a license, depending on what state you're in and what kind of gun you have. But just based on itself, just, on its face, you are 100% allowed to bring a gun to an ICE protest. Now, is it a smart thing to do? I don't think it's a smart thing to do, but it is legal, Okay, welcome, Mount Wise 93. Mounty Sny 93 says, you got to see how amazing Trump's welcome was. I'm not clicking on that link. I don't know who you are. All right, Z Martins asks, do you agree with taxing the rich? Yes, 100%. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping up. I'm at an hour. Thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you for your questions, your supports. A hearty go suck my butthole to whoever reported me for misinformation. That was a completely bullshit report, obviously. Let's see here. If you want to support the channel and send a decisive fuck you to people that do that, there are lots of ways to do that. You can like, you can share, you can shoot me a follow, but just commenting and shit like that, like all of that is, all of that helps. You can also send gifts. The gifts help a lot as well. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits or emotes on Twitch. You can be a fan or a super fan on TikTok. That stuff helps as well. Shooting me a follow helps as well. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. Twitch, also, if you have Amazon Prime, you can be a Twitch subscriber for free. So cost you $0, helps me out a ton. So I'd really appreciate that. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, though there is a very fun incentive at $10 a month. If there are any questions that you have that I was not able to get to on this live stream, DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord. Don't be shy. I want to be a resource for you. So allow me to be a resource for you. Also on the Discord are great recommendations for books and podcasts and a great community, and also civic actions that you can take if you are like me and you see what's going on all around us and you desperately want to help, because it is only in us doing the work that we're going to be able to get out of this. It is only us helping that will be able to get us out of this. Boji, I know that I'm ending my live stream right now, but you are in question jail because I'm tired of having this philosophical debate with you when there are very real political issues that we are dealing with in the world right now. I am not going to be convinced, no matter what you say, that AI is anywhere close to being ready to being our beneficent overlords. So yeah, maybe let's bring it down to reality for a hot second. Z Martin says, do you agree with taxing people who create their wealth by evolving their business and working hard? That is not what creates wealth, Z Martins. What creates wealth is stealing money from the working class. What creates wealth is hijacking our political system and our tax structure. It is not just hard work. If hard work made you a billionaire, then janitors would be billionaires, then teachers would be billionaires, then nurses would be billionaires. People that have 3 jobs would be billionaires, but they don't. There's no correlation between how hard you work and how much money you have. There is a correlation between how much money you had and how much money you have in the future. So a lot of times children of the wealthy tend to be these billionaires because they were able to kind of like lock in gains, you know. All right, James Witham asks, what reforms would make the U.S. healthcare system more affordable? Switching to universal healthcare, paying for it by taxing the rich. There are others, but that's not really my area of expertise. But yeah, if we're going to start on the federal level, then yeah, universal healthcare and paying for it by taxing the rich. All right, hold on a second. Average Joe says several DNC operatives openly derided Sanders' campaign to discuss ways to advance Clinton's nomination. Later reveals included controversial DNC Clinton agreement dated to before the primary regarding financial arrangement and control over policy and hiring decision. Anyway, this is some evidence to support my claim that the DNC actually hates their voters, and the decision in Maine will strongly indicate whether they're willing to shift. I don't think they hate their voters, Average Joe. Again, they're trying to win elections. Some of them just think that the way to win elections is to support centrist candidates as opposed to progressive candidates. I have not seen a single piece of evidence from you, Average Joe, that suggests that all of DNC leadership, or even the majority of them, have contempt for their own voters in the way that you are suggesting, or that they are they so much more concerned with maintaining their own power and influence and money that they're willing to fuck over progressive candidates. I still believe that the good faith but wrong reasons still exist. Okay, everybody. Thank you again for being here. Thank you again for your gifts, your likes, your shares. Tell all your friends how great the live streams are. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to do the work. You be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Goodbye.